Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 2, where are we up to 246, and this is a show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go to my least favorite to my pick of the week, and this week I had a huge haul with 27 books. Almost 30 books to cover here, so let's get started. Number 27 for me was Detective Comics issue 982. Love this cover though. Really cool Mark Brooks cover, which I believe is the variant. And this issue is just complete filler and didn't really like the artwork at all. Just very gritty, and I felt like it was a story we've seen a ton of times with, of course, Bruce dealing with his childhood trauma of losing his parents and relating it to another boy. It's just something we've seen a bunch of times. Didn't really like the art, and it just felt like complete filler, which it was, because they're stalling until we get to the Black Lightning story arc, which was delayed. So, and you could definitely feel that with this issue. So I'm going to give this one 2 stars. Moving on to number 26, which is Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man issue 305. And with this issue, I still don't really like the art for this book. I feel like it could be a lot more detailed than it is. And honestly, just didn't really care for the multiverse stuff that they've been doing here. I just don't know really what direction they're going with this series at all. And again, I think the artwork is what really takes me away from it. And it seems like there are some really cool possibilities. We got to see this alternate universe of Spider-Man. It's the same costume from the PS4 game. And I just feel like they didn't do enough with that aspect. I believe we even get to see like a more badass version of Gwen. Didn't really get to see a lot of personality from her either. So just underwhelmed with this book overall. But as a Spider-Man fan, that's the reason why I'm picking it up. So I'm going to give this one 2 stars. Moving on to number 25, which is Eternity Girl issue 4. And I actually really like the way this issue opened up with music and saying, hey, you can't play all these different songs at the same time or else it ruins the beat. And that's exactly what this book is. Structure-wise, is that it's like all these different kind of storylines meshing together and trying to find its own music, and doesn't. And that's the point of the book. But at the same time, while I was reading it, I didn't enjoy that. You know, just like it doesn't work in music, it doesn't really work as a comic, seeing all these ideas kind of conflicting each other. I liked the commentary and the structure of it, but overall didn't really like the story. So I gave this one 2.5 stars, but at least it was creative, which is why it wasn't my worst pick of the week. But moving on to number 24, which is The Dead Hand issue 3. I do like this book for the most part. I just didn't really care about the British officer as much. We focus on him, and the point I really liked of this issue more was when we find out a little bit more about the little boy and how he's connected to everything and what exactly his role is. I enjoyed that. Also liked the artwork a lot, but it took a little while to get to that ending. The rest is just establishing, hey, this is a place outside of, you know, where it's an unknown place because of the Cold War, and it's owned by Russia, and the people that live there know that, but they're also keeping secrets. So we kind of already knew that idea from the other issues, and they just re-expand upon it. And like I said, the M16 agent, the British officer, is more focused here, and I didn't quite care about his story as much. So overall, I gave this one 3 stars, I believe. Still good. Honestly, I probably gave this 2.5 stars. No, I gave this 3, probably because of the artwork and the ending. So 3 stars for me on that one. Alright, moving on to number 23, which is Betty and Veronica, Vixens Hunted, issue 7. It's just really the artwork that kind of takes me away from this. It's very plain. Even the coloring is very plain, and I just want more detail with this book. But I like the characters. I'm enjoying what they're doing with Veronica's father, kind of figuring out a little bit more about the gangs. We're also expanding upon other characters, like Tony has her own arc in this issue. So I gave this one 3 stars. Still like the story. It's just the artwork that really takes me out of it. So that was number 23. Moving on to number 22, I've actually read the frontline reviews that came out today, and Jay did a review for Awaken Skies issue 0. which is an Aspen book that honestly didn't cross my radar, and I read the description and it sounded interesting. But for an issue 0, not much happens here. Most of it, the first half is just action. You get to see this guy escaping something and getting some information, and that's it. And then he talks to his daughter, which is very generic dialogue of her just having this test, and then the story ends. The reason why it's higher than the others, A, the artwork is good, and B, it's a lot of things I personally like. Like, I like father-daughter relationships, I like high school stories, so I think for me, there's a lot of potential. But for other people, I don't know if this really, established anything, which I think issue 0 should do, is tease something. And here I think they keep a little bit too much to the chest to really fully enjoy. But the artwork kind of brings it up for a 3 because I really did like the artwork here. So I'm going to give that one 3 stars, and that is number 22. Moving on to number 21, which I really like the cover. My cover of the week was Wonder Woman issue 48. And if you're wondering what was going on with Jason while Wonder Woman was with the Star Sapphires during the annual, well, you get to see it. It's an action issue. He teams up with, I believe, some of the Justice League members here and Supergirl as well. And that's kind of it. It's very much an action issue. Artwork is pretty solid for an action issue, though. And if you like Jason as a character, I think you'll enjoy this issue, but it's nothing that's too memorable, sadly. So I'm going to give that one 3 stars. Moving on to number 20, which is Plastic Man issue 1, which I think I'm going to maybe read more of. I love Gail Simone as a writer, which is why I got this. But I've never really been into Plastic Man, and I would say I think people that like the character or is liking the Terrifics book will get more out of this. I enjoyed the humor of the book, I enjoyed the artwork, but there wasn't anything for me personally that I felt attached to want to pick up more, but that might just be my fandom towards Plastic Man as well. But I did think it was a funny book and a well-crafted book. So I'm going to give this one 3 stars, and that's more, again, personal preference than anything. Alright, moving on to number 19. Which is Marvel 2-in-1 Annual The Thing and Infamous Iron Man. So this is a bit different from the other Marvel 2-in-1s, and maybe an example of what they could do with this series once the Fantastic Four does return. Does it always have to be The Thing and Human Torch? Can it be other characters? Maybe they're exploring that. And reason why it's low, honestly, I'm just not a huge Doctor Doom fan, so I wasn't as invested in this story. But if you love Victor, pick this one up. If you loved Infamous Iron Man, pick this one up. Because I do think it's an interesting story of seeing the good side of Doom and maybe having more of a positive future for him. So I enjoyed that aspect. And also it's exploring the multiverses, which past issues have been doing. Artwork is very plain, I would say. That was one complaint. I feel like it could have been maybe a little darker, like the Infamous Iron Man book, but it wasn't bad artwork. It just, I expected a little bit more detail here. But overall, I'm going to give this one 3 stars. It's a little pricey, but it really depends on your fandom towards Doctor Doom / Infamous Iron Man. Moving on to number 18, a new book that looked interesting from Boom, and that is By Night, issue 1. And I like the characters. I don't know if the cliffhanger gave me enough to want to follow the story, which is why it kind of made the middle of the pack. But I like the dialogue here. I like that his 2 friends that grew apart, and when they went back to town, they found each other again. And I think that's an interesting story that not a lot of writers really go for. So I thought that was interesting. So overall, I'm going to give it 3 stars. If you like books like Giant Days and some of the other slice of life Boom books, then pick this one up because it'd probably be up your alley. So I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Still not still not sure if I want to get issue 2 though. Again, personal preference wise, and with how many books I have on my pull already. Alright, moving on to number 17, which is Copperhead, issue 19. Not a bad book by any means. Still love the artwork. Still like this story. But I know this book is not finally ending. It's weird to say that because it just seems like every point it was supposed to end or it got really delayed and you never really knew when this book was going to end, and that's why I kind of say that. But now I think it's officially ending instead of finally. I should have said officially ending. And with this issue, it just doesn't feel like that. It feels like more of this filler issue compared to us getting ready to actually end this series. But the point I really liked with this issue is definitely our main character and her son not really knowing his feelings about his mother because he found out this is not actually his mom. So I like that story a lot, and when they focused on that, that's where I was most entertained with this. So I'm going to give this 3 stars, and of course going to see this one through. Overall, I did think Copperhead was a pretty solid series. Moving on to number 16, did an individual review on this, so I won't go too in-depth, but Thor issue 1. Made the middle of my pile this week. Artwork is the real reason. I think it's gonna definitely be love it or hate it. But weirdly enough, I'm kind of in the middle because I like the pencils. I just felt like the coloring was way too bright for the book, and it distracted me a bit. But I think it touched upon everything you want in a Thor issue 1. For me, I'm glad they touched upon Jane, because that's why I like Thor now, is because of Jane Foster. So I'm glad that they're still, you know, writing her character, which I'm not surprised, because Jason Aaron is still the writer for this book. And then you got stuff with Loki, you get some family drama stuff, so some build up to whatever war is going to happen next. So I liked it. I thought it was good. Definitely gave me enough for more, so I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. But I think bigger Thor fans will probably enjoy this even more. Moving on to number 15, which is Witchblade, issue 6, which tends to make the middle of the pack. Still always really look forward to it because I like the character a lot, but execution's very slow. It's a really slow book, but I still like the voice of this character, and finally in the end of this issue we get to see her friend who died in war, and she saw die, Johnny, come back. So what's that all about? Also, I like that Alex is finally embracing the Witchblade a little bit more. Still don't love the visuals for the Witchblade. Kind of wish it feels very soft to me. I want to see it more grander, the Witchblade powers. But pretty good story. I think it's finally kind of finding itself a bit, so I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. But besides the Witchblade artwork, I do like the art for the actual tension and character work. I do like the art. Just needs to work a little bit more on the action for the Witchblade stuff. Alright, moving on to number 14, which is Venom issue 2. Another kind of in-the-middle book. I'm not a Venom super fan. I like Venom, but that's mostly because I like Spider-Man. But I never really liked his solo stuff as much, so not a super fan of Eddie, but this is a really well-structured book. It's a really polished book, which I love. You could see that with Stegman. Stegman's artwork, which is just so good. It's so good for this book, and I think it's really the big reason why I'm staying with this series as someone who's not a super Venom fan, is the art. It's just gorgeous, and it's you know, dark, and it's haunting, and exactly what you want for a Venom book. And then story-wise, you got Donny Cates, who I really like as a writer, and I believe, yeah, it's Cates, who I really like as a writer, and he's telling a different side of the Venom story, which is interesting. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Again, I think a super Venom fan will like this even more, but I'm still reading it and still want to see where this one goes. So 3.5 stars from me. Moving on to number 13, 13, which another book that kind of stays in the middle for me, but still a book I enjoyed, and that is Betrothed issue 4. I just like these 2 kids who thought they were normal, finding out that they're part of a bigger legacy, and they're starting to fall in love with each other, and their friends are involved, and it's fun. It's, you know, real world meets this high fantasy world, and it works here because it grounds itself enough with their narration and trying to understand love in a lot of ways. It's I feel like this interesting you know, commentary on that. It's not just commentary on real life meets supernatural stuff. I think it's really the feelings of being in love with somebody, and I think that's a unique twist on the story that we've kind of seen before. So Betrothed issue 4 for me gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 12, which is Man of Steel issue 3. a book. I love the dialogue. I love Clark here. I really like his voice. I especially liked his interaction with Batman in that one panel where Superman's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I didn't think about, human eyesight and, shadows. And then Batman shows up and says, hey, you actually were trying to scare her. So I like their dynamic there. Also like Kara and Clark talking to each other. I like their interaction. But I feel like this book's a little messy still. I feel like there's too much voices going on, too many things are trying to happen. You got the Lois John mystery, you got the villain, you got Clark doing what he's doing on his daily routine. It's a lot going on. Supergirl's in this. It's just like, it's maybe a little bit too much for an issue. And I kind of wish it was paced a little bit better, but overall I gave this 3.5 stars because I do like the voice of the book, and artwork is really good for this book as well. Very consistent and feels like Superman, and exactly what you want. Alright, moving on to number 11, which is Batman, Prelude to the Wedding, Batgirl versus the Riddler. I am kind of in the middle with this issue because as a Batgirl fan, I enjoyed it. I liked the Riddler trying to trick her with the analog stuff. I enjoyed it as a Batgirl fan. Is it completely memorable? No. I think that's the downside. Was it completely needed? No. Was the Harley Quinn ending weird? Yes. I don't know why Harley was here when her one-shot's not next, and it's Red Hood's one-shot that's next, so I thought that was a weird transition. And the part I really liked was, Barbara Gordon by the end saying, hey, maybe I should get some coffee with Dick Grayson. But then I know that's not really going to go anywhere, because in Batgirl, she pretty much says, hey, I'm cool with being by myself. And so, yeah, I don't know if that's going to really go anywhere, and that kind of upsets me continuity-wise. But overall, it's a fun issue. If you like Batgirl, pick it up. If you are not a huge Barbara Gordon fan, it's probably skippable. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars, but the artwork's really good. Really like the art. Action's really good too, so depending how much of a fan you are of these characters, will be if you need to pick that one up or not. Alright, moving on to number 10, which is Xena, the Warrior Princess, issue 5, and I've been so surprised by this book. I say this every month. I've never watched Xena, and I'm still really enjoying this. Meredith Finch is really acing it, especially with Gabrielle and Xena's relationship. That's what I like the most about this book, and is probably why I've been sticking with it. I love Gabrielle the most. I just love her spunk, and it works. It's fun, and I don't feel like you need to watch the television show to understand it, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. I know Meredith, I think, is leaving the book soon. I'm going to miss her on the book, and hopefully the artist is staying, because I also really like the art. Some really great facial expressions and action with this book. Bright. It's completely works for this series. But yeah, gave this one 3.5 stars. Looking forward to seeing where the series ends up going, and if they will go the track with Gabrielle and Xena actually having a romantic relationship that they didn't really do in the show. I think there's a chance to do that here. Alright, so moving on to number 9. Which is Titans Special issue 1. Pretty average get the team together type issue, but it does exactly what it needs to do. It gets the team together. And I like the scene with Donna, especially because I like her character. I do think it gets a little repetitive of her saying, I kind of suck, I don't want to do this type thing. It gets very repetitive just because how long it is, but I liked Miss Martian. I like the way she enters the team, and artwork changed. There's a lot of artists that didn't know how to feel about that. But it doesn't ruin the flow because it's a different artist for every single time they encounter a new person that Nightwing wants to bring on the team. So I thought that made sense. I didn't like that we didn't get to see a conclusion with the other Titans though, especially because there's such a fan base surrounding those characters, which is why they were launched the way they were for DC Rebirth. So it's a little, it's a shame that we don't get to see what's going on with Roy or Aqualad or, Lilith. I want to see what's going on with those characters as well, and I don't know if we'll really have a chance jumping into this new Justice League era. So, Titans Annual issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. Still a good book, especially if you want to see what's going on with the new Justice League stuff. Moving on to number 8. Yes, number 8 is The Flash, issue 48. Love this cover as well. That was my second contender for cover of the week. And I don't love the art though in the interior. That's why it's a bit lower. I don't know. It's just not my thing. It feels a little messy to me. I want more from the facial expressions. Don't really like Iris's character design. Not a big fan of the artwork. But really like the story. I like it's Wally fighting for his kids. He finds out that his kids exist. Iris even knows, like, oh yeah, I do remember them. And then Barry doesn't. And it's kind of this fight between the two. And I like it. I think it's cool. And I like how they're building the continuity back for the Flash. So 3.5 stars for me. I think this would be so much higher if it was a different artist though. Because I really do like the story overall. Alright, moving on to number 7, which is Bloodshot Salvation, issue 10. The stuff I really liked the most was definitely Jessie and Magic stuff. Jessie becoming older and trying to connect with the internet, and then finds out that the villains are catching her because of it, and Magic and her have to run away. And then Magic realizing, am I ever going to see my husband again? We were in a fight last time I saw him. Going into Ray's story, that was the part I didn't like as much. I thought Ray's story, I wish was connected a little bit more to Jessie and Magic's narrative a bit. And I know that was kind of the point of this series, that it's somewhat connected, but they're their own adventures at the same time. But I do like the artwork. I like the coloring the most. Sometimes the pencils I think could be a little neater for the facial expressions. But overall I like the art style a lot, and I think the coloring is what really makes it for me. So I gave this one 3.5 stars, especially for Jessie and Magic's story. And we'll see with this new Valiant relaunch. Hopefully we get to see Magic and Jessie still in the series, even if they're switching up creative teams. Alright, moving on to number 6, which is Hunt for Wolverine, the Adamantium Agenda, issue 2. I enjoyed this issue because it's just fun, you know? It's just fun seeing that the cliffhanger of last issue was that they had Danny's DNA that they're gonna sell, and then you find out no one wants Danny's DNA because she's not actually a superhero, and Luke saying, hey, why does no one want my daughter's DNA? And then Tony's like buying stuff off of the black market, and then in the end, you know, there's obviously a fight and stuff, and they're trying to escape, and then they see Wolverine, the actual, but you know, Wolverine, current Wolverine, which is Laura. So it's fun, you know, it's exactly what you want with this kind of not one-shotty, but you know it's not gonna be like, oh my god, Logan's gonna be found here, because there's so many other miniseries going on. It's not gonna happen. It's just a fun adventure of getting close to getting the Logan, and then that last one shot, we'll see Logan. So, you know, these are kind of just one-off type stories that, you know, are about Logan. So I like it. It's fun. It's exactly what you want. So I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was a very solid issue. Moving on to number 5. I think it's my first time in my top 5, but I enjoyed this one, and that is Sideways, issue 5. And I like this because, you know, plays off superhero tropes without being too cliche. It's about this troll character who wants to out sideways and is manipulating everybody to be a troll in high school. And I like that it has to do with Ernie and her sister, and then Sideways as, you know, high schoolers. And I enjoy the double life aspect. And then it looks like his mom might find out he's sideways. There's some drama between them as well. So I think they heightened Derek's story a little bit more, which made me more entertained, because the superhero aspect is still a bit cliche for me, and I know that's the purpose, but I still think it needs to find its own voice, and it will with Derek and his supporting cast, because that's the more unique aspect of the series and more interesting aspect. So Sideways issue 5 for me gets 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to the Magic Order, issue 1, which is my number 4. I thought it was a pretty solid start. I wanted a little bit more from the family. That would be my little complaint. But I liked what we did get to see. You know, how they were introduced and how different they are. And just the way they introduced this world. I thought it was a very good world building issue. But now I want to see even more to like these characters. That's what I want to see more with the next issues. Love the artwork though. Really works for the series well. I love the facial expressions. Kind of like this darkness that's with this series as well. But when it needs to be grounded, it's completely grounded. Like one of the brothers who just does not want to deal with magic, even though he's kind of the best at it, because he lost his daughter. I thought that was a really interesting story as well. So gonna give this one 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is... Number 3 is Mr. Miracle, issue 9. I love this book. And the reason I like it is that it's the mix of the mundane with these god-like, well, god creatures, really. It's Mr. Miracle and Berta going to their, you know, home world again, and they're swimming in lava, and that's normal for them, you know? That's what makes Mr. Miracle great. But the scene that really made it is this kind of, Renaissance man who says, yeah, I slept with Da Vinci, even though his boyfriend was jealous, or was making his boyfriend jealous. He's telling this whole story, and then by the end, and I love the way it's told. It's like, oh, you know, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a fable. And then in the end, they talk to each other again, Mr. Miracle and Renaissance Man, and he says, yeah, you know, that whole story I told you was fake. I just wanted to impress you because we were peeing next to each other. That's what makes Mr. Miracle, you know, these kind of mundane, small moments that become, you know, relatable in some ways, even though they're talking about going back in time in Da Vinci, and they're in this world where they can swim in lava and be okay, you know? It's fun. It's a really fun series. Love the paneling. It's great. So overall, I gave this one a solid 4 stars. Pick up Mr. Miracle if you have not been reading it. Moving on to number 2, which is Babyteeth, issue 11. And this is another series I've just been loving. And we get to see Sadie, our main character, wants to go into the demon world, the Red Realm, to save her son and her sister. And the father's like, no, you're not ready. And most of the time in these type of stories, it's like they train for a little while and, you know, 3 pages, and they're ready. They are warrior ready to go into whatever madness they have to go into. But in this, they play off, it's like, no, she's not. She sucks at everything she does to try to, you know, go into this world. So I like that. I like that it felt a little bit more realistic in that way. And of course, I love the art style for this because the colors pop so well. It's dark, but it's not muddy, you know? I really like it's heavy inking, but it never feels muddy with the contrast of the coloring. So overall, I gave this a solid 4 stars. I thought it showed the Red Realm well, and we actually get to see Heather and Clark in the end of this issue, and it seems like they've been through some stuff. So hopefully we get to see them meeting up by the end, or by the next issue. We'll see when the family will meet up again. Moving on to number 1, this is my obvious number 1 for me this week, and that is Nancy Drew, issue 1. Now, I could say also, I've never read a Nancy Drew book, so this is not coming from like a Nancy Drew hardcore fan or anything. I just thought Kelly Thompson made this really relatable and a really good book. If you like Hawkeye especially, it's very much in the vein of Kate Bishop's Hawkeye. Nancy Drew is essentially Kate Bishop, and all the other characters surrounding her is like her other supporting characters from that series as well. But I liked it. It's, you know, Nancy, she's in another town figuring out mysteries, and I love her dialogue in the beginning. I just thought it was a really good opening, saying, hey, you know what people say? You know, I don't know what people say. Who are these people? I love that, and it feels like so Nancy Drew, and you really get to see her personality. I love the cartoonish art style, really bright colors, totally works for this book. And then she goes back home and she meets up with her friends. You see how things have changed and what mystery brings them there. Get the Hardy Boys in there. Just a ton of fun, this book, and I am super excited to see where this one goes. Kelly Thompson's got me totally hooked. So 4.5 stars for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know this was a big haul this week. It was a lot of comics, but thank you guys. Let me know in the comments below what was your least favorite book, was your favorite book, and everything in between. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links to my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.